So, a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our LinkedIn Live event on maximizing value visibility in digital transformation initiative. I'm Naveen Rathi, your host for today's session. We have an exciting lineup of speakers who will share their insights on how organization can achieve better results during digital transformation initiative. Our first speaker is Mr. Ashish Srivastava, known thought leader at YASH, who has an extensive experience in value visibility and technology adoption. He is joined by Akshay Kirti, who is also thought leader in field of digital transformation. Today's session, today's session promises to be informative and engaging. So make sure you have your notepad ready. So without further ado, I would hand over the session to Akshay to kick off our discussion.
You're on mute. You're on-
Akshay, looks like you're on mute. Can you just check it once? Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, technical glitch. Just give me time. Akshay, can you check now?
Okay, seems there to be some technical issue. Meanwhile, it is getting resolved. Let me introduce myself. So
Yes,
I
go ahead.
am I'm Ashish here. Basically, I am a chemical engineer from IIT Madras, 2003 batch, and MBA from IIM Kozhikode, 2007 batch. So in my past experiences, I have worked for Dr. Reddy's post my engineering and post my MBA. I have also worked into business consulting, largely into strategy and operations. Having worked with Stern Stewart and Company, which is basically one of the proprietary holder of this economic value added and shareholder value management framework. Uh, Going thereafter, being associated for an Bradstreet for a while, and then moving on to KPMG, where I have spent a larger portion of my career, and now with YASH Technology since last 2 years. Here I am heading value visibility and realization value stream within business consulting in the YASH consulting domain. So this is my brief background. Over to Akshay, right? Akshay? Is the connection restored or? I think there is some technical issue. I think Akshay, you can drop and then rejoin again. Meanwhile, let me get this started so that this thing, what the objective we have set it for today, what we wanted to highlight is uh, what do we mean by value visibility in particular, and then thereafter what we mean by maximization, and of course how it is relevant in today's environment where organizations are moving on to digital transformation. Of course, part of it being COVID pandemic, but of course there are larger theme any ways which was going on. So idea is to explain to audience what value means to organizations, and not even organization, even into our personal domain as well. So idea is if we want to take any decision, okay, as an individual, that is part one. Now we need to when we uh, choose to take any decision, there are multiple options available with us, right? And that is where we need to understand what should be our framework or what we should our methodology be to evaluate those options and therefore choose one. That is at an individual level. That is the basic principle. That is the methodology which this framework addresses and helps to guide people who are on that path. Now, that is one part of the thing at an individual level, but when we look at a ensemble of things, right? I am an individual working in an organization, and therefore there are multiple people within this organization working for the same one, and there are multiple organizations within a geography, etc. Right? So that is what we will try to deliberate right now here, and subsequently we will delve deeper into how we how we can detail it out and what should be our framework and methodology or the process to uncover this value which any organization tries to take for any decision they have made. Okay. So Akshay, has you have you joined back? Okay. So let me get into nitty gritties of the thing. So the
Ashish,
first
let me
question.
take this up. Yeah. So, could you just at a very high level or from a CX level, can you help us understand? I mean, what's the purpose is of a linking strategy to value? Uh,
Yeah.
if you could answer that, Ashish.
So there are two things, right? There are two layers of the things which we are speaking right now. One is the question what we should do. Okay. Now once we answer that what we should do, suppose I have chosen XYZ, then how we should be doing that particular thing. Okay, so there are two things which comes into this picture. Now for example, of course I will take example from IT technology industry or any organization per se, but I am taking that initiative for an organization. Suppose they have decided to pursue a particular ERP, right? The first thing is how they did arrive at that this particular ERP is better than XYZ, be it QAD, be it Oracle, be it S4 HANA. That is one layer of decision making which needs to happen. Now what I have observed and what I am seeing right now is those decisions largely are based on the gut feel or observation from the competition, that X competition is doing this, therefore let us do for ourselves as well. So the basic mistake people usually see, right? Seeing others and seeing them successful means that if we do replicate the same thing, we will be successful. The the framework which we are discussing today actually uh, helps us avoid that pitfall. What is working for others may not work for us, and there are multiple reasons for that. We can be at a different stage of maturity compared to others. While they have been successful, while we are seeing their success, we don't know their history, right? Why they have been here and why they have chosen what they have chosen. So, first area which this framework addresses is saying that I need to decide, and therefore what is best interest of me, how this framework helps me deciding that rather than looking to someone else. Okay. Now looking for to someone else is not wrong, as long as it is adding or I we can take something from other organization. For example, benchmarking is a good example, right? So benchmarking, if audience is there, so then they can understand benchmarking can be at two level. It can be internal benchmarking, it can be external benchmarking. Now, how it helps is once we benchmark, we know where we are. That is what we know, right? That truth is with us. What we are trying to decipher is what is true for others, and that is where this benchmarking helps. And that is where this entire framework helps you leverage to outside in perspective also and from inside out perspective. So that is one part. Once you are making a decision, to make that decision there are multiple options. So that is one part of it. This framework helps you prioritize and make decision what is best suited for your interest. Okay. And the second level is once you have chosen what should be the path to, what is the best path to achieve that objective which you have finalized upon for yourself. So there are two things which this framework
Yeah.
is powerful enough to guide you to take your or to take your decision to. First thing is protect your value and enhance your value, and therefore enhance is just subset of it. You can even if enough information is available with you, you can actually maximize value for yourself. Yeah.
To add to the discussion, if you are able to hear me now,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So I'll try to take a step back and start with saying that we what we see like right today organizations make significant investments in business transformation strategies to realize specific benefits, right? If not managed properly, programs will get off track definitely, right? That will jeopardize the complete investment and the delivery of value for which the program was actually initially undertaken, right? As a result, if you see the statistics, almost 70% of the transformations today fail, right? Leaving the value of transformation unrealized and potentially putting the organization at a risk, right? Along with that, if you see there's common dilemma that you can see across enterprises is the failure to adequately showcase to their stakeholder the full value realized from a product, service, or the transformation journey that industries or businesses embark on, right? Sometimes a stakeholders perception of measurement of value may not consider all the pertinent factors in consideration, right? It is very necessary for companies to master the ability to track, quantify, as well as communicate the value realized to the customers and stakeholders, right? And this is where this tool realization framework comes into picture that can be employed by leadership to manage and drive better outcomes sustainably. Having said that, I we wanted to start uh, asking Ashish the very basic and straight, which might look very straightforward, but very important to start our discussion with is, Ashish, what exactly we should understand by value, and how should we identify value?
Yeah. So that is a question which we need to address to begin with. Now the point is, see, what is a value? Of course, for old saying, right? Beauty lies in the eyes of beholder. So if I am seeing something, I will value it with X, Y, Z. Someone else is seeing it, it will say it is PQR, right? So that is how it happens. Now, point is in an decision-making context or any organizational context, we need to understand one thing. It is one thing to believe what we think, right? Now we also don't know whether what we think is right or wrong. Suppose I have seen a stone, okay, I will say it is a normal stone, and someone sees and says that it is a diamond, right? Now I also know that diamond is more valuable than a normal stone, but since I have seen that and I am interpreting as a it is a stone, it is zero value for me. But if someone tells me it is a diamond, then that value becomes multifold, right? So that is where the disconnect lies, and therefore we need to have a uniform understanding of what I think as a value and what other think as a value are at a same platform. Okay, and that is where this concept of value in an corporate or organizational context has come, which basically is defined as saying that it is nothing but just the present value of all the free cash flows for whatever initiative, transformation, decision, whether at a personal or individual level, we are going to take. Now, what is this present value of all the future free cash flows? I'm not going into technicalities of finance, but if you know what is the incremental revenue, what is the incremental cost, and what is the incremental investment you are going to make, and correspondingly against what risk you are taking, you can mathematically you can calculate what value is there for that particular initiative or particular decision or any particular transformation any business has taken part in or envisaged to take part in. So that is what the technical definition of value is, what we will focus on in today's discussion. Only one thing to just a caveat for the audience here is saying that see, don't mix this with the stock market. Okay, of course, the stock market is also a value framework, and all those things are there. But then, see, in the stock market or as a community of investors, there are multiple investors. Again, like I said, same thing I can value as X Y Z. Some investor might value it with PQR, right? So when in stock market, it is aggregation of all those expectations of the values. But right now we are focusing upon a particular organization and maybe a particular transformation which any organization wants to undertake upon, and we will focus upon how to decide that whether that transformation is adding will add value to the organization, which is in the interest of shareholders or the investors, and if chosen that in transformation, what is the optimal path to achieve that transformation objectives. That is where we will focus on this today. But simply speaking, value technically is just the present value of all the future free cash flows of the any initiative or transformation or any decision which either at an individual level, department level, or organization level has been taken. Yeah.
Thank you, Ashish. So another important aspect that I wanted to touch base upon, which goes hand in hand with any digital transformation, or if we talk about value realization, is strategy, right? Strategy often starts with a vision of a company, where exactly they want to be seen or how it wants to see itself, right? But this vision needs further definition, right? Stating strategic objectives raises the question of how they will be achieved. That's the first thing, right? What needs to be done to reach the desired sales level, let's say, or obtain a quality rating that companies or businesses want to achieve, right? How these objectives will be achieved are critical strategic decisions, I would say, right? There may be multiple ways of improving, be it product quality or a product specification and all, right? A company needs to actually decide which of the many possible initiatives, there might be multiple initiatives, right, is the most significant for achieving the strategic objectives that company wants to achieve, right? In other words, strategy is about company, what company intends to do, perhaps more importantly, what it intends not to do as well, right? With this, the next topic that I wanted to highlight, Ashish, and ask you is to uh, elaborate on the how part of it. We understand the value. Now, if you can elaborate more on how part of it, how do we identify suitable options?
Yeah, so let us understand what is a strategy actually, right? Strategy is saying that I have set out on one particular thing which I want to achieve, right? Now,
Correct.
strategy is one particular path to achieve it. Okay. Now, as once we have decided, we call it a strategy. But technically speaking, once the vision and missions are laid out, actually there are multiple strategies to achieve the same. Okay. Now, that is one part of the thing where this framework can help you decide which strategy is most value adding for the organization. Okay. Now, another part where this particular thought of yours is focusing upon, suppose we have decided upon strategy, then what is the most optimal milestones or steps to be taken? Okay. Now, here comes the important part, wherein what we are trying to say is CEO has decided a strategy, right, to that I want to
Correct.
do XYZ in XYZ years and in XYZ geographies, in XYZ products, and all those things, right? Now the question is, to it to be successful, this same information and the same message has to get communicated to the bottom of the pyramid as well, right?
Correct.
I can decide, I can choose, or I want to have a vision, or I want to have one particular thing, and it is in my mind. Now, how do you translate and translate in such a way that the people who are going to actually execute on the ground are uh, able to execute, and they will be able to understand, and more importantly, if they are into what you thought is right path to create that value, and therefore that is the best thing, right? So this brings in the concept of line of sight. Now, what as a top management thinks and what we as an employee think, there is a huge disconnect. We always think that top management is trying to suck us out of our efforts, etc., and management might be thinking that okay, these people are not doing anything. Okay, so that is where this disconnect happens, and that is where we need to realign and therefore create that line of sight. Okay, so that what has been decided and where the investments have been made is getting communicated, getting translated, and also understood by in the down the value chain in the organization as well. And that is where our value driver framework, wherein we try to break down into larger objective into multiple sub levers and sub levers till further sub levers till the extent where they are measurable. Actually, they are simple as well, so that we can measure them, track them, and be assured that these are directly linked to the value creation. And any deviation XYZ parameter, it directly affects my value creation. So, for example, if this exercise has been done, and I am the person who is actually saying that okay, I need to ensure that my error rate has to be in within some range what has been decided to ensure that business is sustainable, right? So I know that if I deviate from that, it is I cannot calculate the value myself directly, but there is a line of things which that directly affects the overall value creation or value protection for the organization. So if that basically gets ensured and translated and understood by the entire stream of people within an organization, then it becomes a sustainable this thing. And that is what exactly what this framework enables us to do. Now, another thing is there is typically a tendency of any person or anything to have a short-term mindset, right? We think that okay, today it is beneficial. We forget about its longer-term implication. Technically, we should come from long term to short term, but actually in real life, irony is that we think short term and long term, of course, is not doesn't become so beneficial. So framework basically highlights and educates and convinces also to say that have a long term horizon, drill down into short term initiatives, and then you will have that right optimal path to execute your strategy. That is what the framework through this value drill down framework. Yeah.
Okay. Just to add, like I would also like to add saying that uh, to also provide business executives, if we think from their perspective, right, and leaders, this also provides a practical and a very systematic way for preparing board members and for board members and stakeholders questions, right, on the shareholders value of proposed strategic initiatives that were taken. Now, we should also understand how shareholder value is derived from revenue growth, margin improvement, and asset efficiency, the levels that you talked about, Ashish. Right? While such general value levels are really very helpful, but they do not guide any organization regarding the critical decisions on where and how to compete. Right? We also have observed the strategic plans show how strategic initiatives support the overall corporate vision. But apart from ad hoc business cases, we need to link shareholder value very systematically, right? By depicting shareholder value as vertical tree, like you just explained, and strategic plans as horizontal tree, we can construct a systematic mechanism for explicitly linking strategy to value, right? Now, moving ahead, I quickly wanted to touch base upon few challenges that business leaders face today. If I have to put it in a way, like they often face dual challenge. On one hand, they need to demonstrate to the market that their enterprises are creating value for their shareholders. On other hand, the effectiveness relies on identifying the exploiting differentiated ways of serving customers faster, better, cheaper than the competitors, right? Now, investors would like to see how their investments can pay off. Lenders would want to know how their funds will be used and returned. Analysts would like to assess one company against another. Customers would want to bring their businesses and assurances that their needs will be met. Employees want to know they will continue to have interesting work that pays the bill or not, right? And finally, the board wants to know if the enterprise is prudently run while competing aggressively, right? With dual challenge also comes dual double risk. If the company cannot differentiate itself from competitors, it may not be able to attract customers and will cease to be in business. Yet, if it is too different, right, it may actually confuse the investors and may not attract the investments that are necessary to stay in business. So therefore, senior executives should be very adept developing strategic plans that provide a competitive advantage, communicating how they will provide shareholder value altogether. They should be able to link strategy to value, and the value relation technique helps executives understand these connections and provides a practical, systematic framework for tracking the impact of proposed strategic actions on shareholder value. Having all these in mind, right, Ashish, if you can help us explain the important uses of framework, or why this framework becomes important, if I have to put it like that, in a very post pandemic
Yeah,
world.
yeah. So all of the statements you made earlier, right? Every statement had a what in it, right? What,
Yeah,
how, and all those things. So this is the framework which helps you decipher what needs to be done and how needs to be done. So that is where the struggle is. The only catch, or for the audience, I'm addressing to audience right now. You need to understand at what level you are making the decision, right? The decision and the visibility or the scope which I have is different from my boss, and my boss's range and visibility and scope and decision making is different from what senior management and investors are having to that extent. So, to answer your question, at an investor level, they will be bothered about whether this business is making sense for them or not. Okay. Now,
correct.
for that, they need to take validation, and for that, they cannot go into that nitty gritty or that into that detail wherein everything becomes so huge that it is unmanageable, whether by computers or mathematics themselves. So, they need to take that high level approach, and at a high level idea is the end of the day what we are trying to do. I need to decide something, and I have something in my mind. Just to take a recent example, Adi Purush, right? I don't know what is happening
Yeah,
in the real life, but point is someone made that decision, right? He was not
yeah,
knowing whether doing this will return into this, but of course their expectation was this will they might have other scenarios in mind, and that is where the decision makers ability to articulate and identify those options which are available to them. So everyone wants to be the richest man in the world, right? But not everyone is, right? They cannot be, theoretically not possible. The idea is not that. The idea is, if I am decided that I have to be richest person in the world, then do I have options available with me, or I am just betting on luck, right? So idea
correct.
is the person who is trying to make decision needs to have the entire canvas open, and he should be able to articulate these are the things or the options available to me. Now the question comes how to evaluate those things, right? For example,
Yeah,
if I want to become an engineer or a doctor or XYZ, right? Now, what are the options available? I should be aware of that, or someone should be able to tell me. That is part one.
true.
If I have the options, how do I evaluate those options? Now, identifying options, no framework, no methodology is going to help, okay, except for discussions or self exploration. Any framework, any tool which you will come across in your life or in your career will be able to help you guide how to decide it, whether it is a heuristic, whether it is a any algorithm or whatever it is. It will help you in deciding and prioritizing what you have identified as an option, and this is the framework which helps you do it. Now, the beauty of this is it does it ac- consistently across the levels. It helps you decide your strategic options, prioritize them, decide upon that. Once you have decided that, it helps you to decide and evaluate your optimal path to achieve that or to execute that strategy. More importantly, once you have decided and created that implementation roadmap, when you are starting the execution, within that execution, this framework is capable to guide you or course correct yourself, because any deviation in the value driver tree and the matrices which you are measuring going forward, the deviations will tell you whether you are on an envisaged path or not. If you are there, then there is no problem, continue with that. If there is a problem, then you need to assess why there is a deviation, whether it is because of external factor, internal factor, xyz, whatever it is. Then you need to course correct that, and it enables you to which lever you can course correct, or you should be able to course correct, because some levers are sticky, some things are under your control, some things are not under your control. That is next level of thing. During execution also, this framework helps you to control, monitor, and course correct yourself. More importantly, you can tie this measurement what we are have drilled down to the entire levels of employees in the organization, to tie in with their incentives, so that everyone is aligned to the overall organization goal. Okay, so that is the power of this framework. And theoretically speaking, if organizations are doing do this, uh, those organizations have been successful. So now the metrics which you said, right, 70% of the transformation fail. Now,
Correct.
why they have failed is basically not because the intent was wrong or initiative was wrong. Idea is they either they didn't measure it earlier or they didn't envisage or articulated that drill down to the further level, and they just initiated it, but execution went wrong because there was no course correction or measurement to check whether it is going right or wrong. That is how it happens typically. For example, I am a very bright student, right? In my 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, I am very, very bright. Now someone, and that trend on those days is saying that okay, clearing IIT or AIMS is the best thing to do, right? Now I cleared that. Okay, that also happened. Now point is, those 5 years or 4 years when I'm doing the studies, whether I'm on the right track or not, who is guiding that? People who
Correct.
decided or who wanted me to get selected. I'm selected, they are happy, right? I am happy because I've demonstrated that I'm capable. But actually after getting into it, what I'm doing, whether I'm studying, whether I'm just enjoying the infrastructure which has been offered to me, or what I am doing, that is where this framework keeps you conscious and keeps your matrices aligned there. Yeah. So that is why people say execution is more important than whatever you plan.
Correct. So, like we were talking about power of this tool, right? I wanted to quickly touch base upon couple of points that we have seen or benefits that client derive out of this framework when implemented, right? Are like the consistent and quantified results to the client's objective and key results is something that we have seen across successful value realization framework wherever it has been done, right? The leadership is more empowered to decisions, and they can view tangible impacts based on the KPIs that we identify as part of this particular framework and the engagement. Uh, the enabled data driven decisions to improve team performance is something that comes out of this particular framework as well, right? Team members are well Team members have well defined KPIs and integrated reporting, all in all, right? Improved accountability across levels, like we were talking about, this can work across levels of the organization, and obviously the connected team outputs to key outcomes.
The only
With that,
I will just stop you there. The only catch here is this is not a static framework. Okay.
correct.
Now, once
Yes,
we have decided this KPIs and in a given context we have bounded that okay, this means that value will be created, and if there is any deviation, value will get destroyed. Now this needs to get realigned as time passes, and of course that is where this framework becomes important, because it helps you prioritize given the economic context, given the industry which you are in, and given the maturity of your particular organization, and where that particular organization is playing in the market. Okay, so that is where there is no universal answer saying that growth becomes my single metric for entire industry. It is not true. Okay,
correct.
or cost control becomes my universal objective in that particular industry. This is not true. This framework tells any particular organization where they need to focus upon to maximize their value. Okay, that is where the beauty and the power of this framework is. And of course it becomes unbiased to that extent, because it is tendency of humans, right? He is doing this, he is successful, let me do that also. So that is where this framework helps you cross check. Possible that if you do the same thing you will get successful, it does not deny that, but point is it gives you a sense check to introspect to yourself, saying that what you are doing in your context and in your capacity and in your whatever resources you have, whether you are adding value or you are going to destroy value.
Correct. Yeah, we wanted to quickly touch base upon one recent case study that Yash and Business executed for one of our lead recycling businesses, right? So this company, Ashish, has a very unique business of collecting used or scrap lead lead acid batteries. And lead happens to be one of the most recycled materials in the world, right? Which is collected and then processed in their manufacturing unit, and pure lead is extracted out of the scrap lead along with other materials like plastics, which is then converted into pellets, acid. There are other precious metals like gold, silver that are extracted, and then they are sold to other manufacturers or other businesses, right? They embarked on transformation journey with Yash, where we helped them with S4 HANA implementation. We also help them with mapping their complete as is and to be business processes across various different modules, right? Along with this, business team also built a value visibility template for them, utilizing the typical value realization framework that we have discussed all throughout this session, right? We identified the key value levers across different process areas. Those value levers were then broken down into sub value levers, which had value drivers within them. Along with, we went ahead and identified KPIs, talking about that tree like structure, and put it in a framework that can be used either top down or can be used bottom up, which means if even if we have identified KPIs first, that can be used to move up to the tree and say that, okay, this is the value that I'm going to create, right? Another important aspect is to how to track and communicate these KPIs over a period, right? And to support that, a KPI tracking template was provided to this business by our team, right? Which using which they can manage those KPIs going forward, right? Another important aspect that we wanted to highlight regarding this is like, there might be questions, right? How exactly this is carried along with the transformation engagements that we typically embark on, businesses embark on. So I just wanted to state that this typically we get engaged from the very beginning, which we call phase zero of the transformation, in a way that we align our value realization experts and SMEs and plan with the technology transformation team to avoid any duplication of business efforts, right? However, if there is a need, this can be carried out at any given point in time throughout the transformation journey, and the framework can be provided to the business, right? If you would like to add more to it, Ashish.
Yeah, the only quickly, since we need to take
Yeah,
questions from audience as well. So quickly, one point. See, typically what we have observed is decision is made. Okay,
correct.
irrespective of whether you have invoked value framework for your decision making or not. And of course, decision has been made, and it must have been made in some with sane rationalization and due to consideration by the top management. Now, typically, what happens is once the decision is made, like I told earlier, during the execution, organization starts facing difficulties. Now, one difficulty is, of course, in the change management part of it, because if there is a transformation happening, and therefore your employees are expected to behave in a different way and in a certain way going forward. And another is what was envisaged, top management is not able to articulate or see that appropriately, and therefore, of course, frictions start coming. Top management will say this was supposed to happen, it has not happened, and people who are executing will start trying to give justification because they were not told what it was. Right? They were given a task, they were doing just a task, and somehow task was materializing, not materializing is one part. Now, in this particular case, this is a very unique and particular case. This organization actually has grown through merger and acquisitions. Okay, now,
Yeah,
and not in a single geography, but across the globe. They have operations in Americas, Europe, Africa, Asia, all across. Okay. Now, and more towards in each geography, they have acquired different entities. Now, the complication it brings along with it is, since it is an S4 HANA and ERP implementation exercise, different entities have different legacy systems at different level of maturity, and end of the day, objective, the implementation partner who is implementing S4 HANA faces is, or the organization themselves faces, which systems to retain, which to retire, and which one to purchase new, right? So all these decision making becomes open once you start implementation. Now, the framework which we are speaking helps you decide in that. Okay, for example, if a particular geography is operating under different system, and that system is say has a age of say 10 to 15 years or whatever it is. Now, what you should do? Should you continue? Because continuing would mean that you are not directly integrated with new system, and therefore you will need a new interface. And if you want to discard, then the choice of new system is, of course, will come with a new cost, right? So this framework helps you evaluate and decide upon which geography, which location, which system to retain, retire, or take a new one. So that is where this power of this is. And of course, we try to do this exercise with the client, and we evaluated those scenarios, um, uh, and we are going in a good rapport with the client right now. Yeah.
With that, and in interest of time, I think we would like to hand this session over to Naveen so that we can take some questions from audience. Thank you.
Sure, Akshay. Thank you so much, Ashish and Akshay, for the wonderful session. So I see there are a couple of questions. Let's see how many we can address. So the first question is, Ashish. So while on the value visibility journey for a digital transformation, so how does a risk management play an important role? If you could highlight a couple of points here.
So it is inherent part of this framework. So like I said, right, value is revenue, cost, capital, and the risk. Okay. So or risk management is one part of it, that is the execution part of it. The risk part is actually captured in this framework. So for example, if I want to take any decision, right, like I took an example of saying that I have completed my 12th. I want to, now the question is whether I should choose engineering or should I choose medical, right? I will take my personal example. I am both maths biology graduate, okay, not graduate, but in 12th I had both maths and biology. Now the question before me was whether I should go to engineering or medical. Now my personal preference was being a doctor. Okay, let me be very honest. But I'm not. I'm engineer today. Okay. So question is, how do you evaluate that? Now the thing is, I know that I am good at maths. Okay, and of course I knew that my first preference was maths and in which ways, but somehow because of social conditions and whatever philosophy you learn from your family and neighborhood, doctor seems to be more noble profession, right? And technically speaking, in my part of the area where I come, IAS officer, being an IAS officer was a dream. Now the point is, what should I have chosen? Okay, how do I evaluate? Now I know how much engineer. See, I am deciding from where I am. Okay, I will decide. Okay, if I complete my engineering, I will get a salary of X Y Z. If I choose medical, it will mean 5 years of study and thereafter some practice, and then after doing that X Y Z things. Now, what is the risk? The earlier salary is better or lesser riskier for me at that point in time, and that of course is guided by my background and all those things. So that is, you need to keep that in mind as well. And medical of course will be sustainable, but returns which I am seeing today is lesser compared to engineering what I saw it say some 25 years back, right? So that is where this risk management framework will come in. That will say that okay, medical while sustainable, lesser riskier is fine. Engineering relatively safe, relatively less safer but higher return immediately. So what should I choose? That is the trade-off which a decision maker has to make. Okay. Now coming to risk management, so risk evaluation is one part, risk management is other. Now risk management, when I got selected into say IIT, then my what is going to be my risk management? Risk management is saying that I need to pass every year or all the semesters technically, otherwise I run that risk, right? So I have to ensure to manage that risk. I need to complete my assignments on time. I need to attend most of the lectures, etc. That is the risk management part of it, and that is what when we draw any implementation roadmap for any organization or initiative, we take care of that. Yeah.
Right. Thank you for answering that, Ashish. Here's an interesting question that I see. So how do you balance, let's say, between investing resources on technology infrastructure versus data analytics capabilities when embarking on a digital transformation journey?
Technology infrastructure and
The
AIS
analytics capabilities, yes.
analytics. So technically, there is no balance or there is no trade-off there. So both go hand in hand. There is no trade-off. If it can be explained better, the question I can answer that. I don't see any trade-off there or balance there.
Right, even I thought the same, Ashish. Okay, so we will skip this. The next question would be, I think, can you provide any tips on, let's say, how companies can stay agile and adapt quickly to changing market condition when embarking on a new technology solution as a part of their digital transformation strategy?
Yeah, so this is important one, and this needs some deliberation. See, what do you mean by agile, and what do you mean by changing market condition, right? See, the problem, the crux of the problem is we think something is happening, right? And what is our source of information? Because we are part of an organization. And I will take a typical example of a manufacturing organization. Okay, now sales team typically comes saying that okay, customer is wanting XYZ variety. Okay, the operations team says that we can produce this much and for this quality only. Okay, now the question is, as a CEO, how do I balance that? That is the real crux of the thing. Sales team is seeing the market, and operations is constrained with the view that what they have in hand. Of course they can't change their setup overnight, right? Sales team wants changed things on a day to day basis. Now that is where the trade off has to be made, and value decision or value framework needs to be invoked. So there is needs to have a cross check mechanism within that organization, saying that what is being asked, whether it is a short term or it has a long term trend. So if organization as a whole sees that input from the sales team saying that okay, these trends are happening, and if we decide today, we will be able to cater to the future. That is where the decision making and the real power of this framework will start coming in. If we start deciding or discussing collectively rather than deciding in silos. Okay, because sales team will say that okay, customer is saying XYZ. If they are not agreeing, then what should I do? And they will force operations to do that. Organization being focused on revenue, they will pressure cost or operations team further, service team further, and therefore nothing will happen because system has its own capacity because it was designed at the trend which was some say 10 years back, right? So if what we are thinking of 10 years hence needs to get decided today. So that is where trade-off needs to happen.
Well, very well said, Ashish. Thank you so much for answering that. That brings us to the end of our session today, ladies and gentlemen. So, thank you everyone who joined us for our LinkedIn Live event on maximizing value visibility digital transformation initiative. We hope that you find discussion informative and engaging. I would like to thank Ashish for sharing his expertise with us today, and also Akshay Kirti for keeping the conversation flowing smoothly. If you have any more questions, you can reach us on LinkedIn, or you can also email us at info@yash.com. That is info@yash.com. And if in case you missed any part of our today's session, do revisit the same page and you can go through the recording. Once again, thank you all for joining us. We look forward to seeing you at future events. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.